Our next lesson is type 1 and type 2 error. This is a continuation of our first lesson about understanding hypothesis testing. There are actually four possible outcomes in decision making. Either we commit a type 1 error, a type 2 error, or it could also be a correct decision for the null hypothesis which is true or the null hypothesis which is false. So later I will discuss these decisions one by one. Here we can see the reality. The reality could either be that the null hypothesis is true or the null hypothesis is false. When we reject a true null hypothesis, we commit a type 1 error. So if the null hypothesis is true and you reject it, then you will commit a type 1 error. If you do not reject a true null hypothesis, then congratulations, you made a correct decision. It's because if the null hypothesis is true and is accepted, it is a correct decision. You do not commit any error at all. Now, you see that the null hypothesis is false. In reality, the null hypothesis is false, and you reject the null hypothesis. Then again, congratulations, you made a correct decision. So if the null hypothesis is false and rejected, it is a correct decision. However, if you fail to reject a false hypothesis, you commit a type 2 error. So if the null hypothesis is false and accepted, it is a type 2 error. Type 1 error is symbolized as alpha, or if you remember, this is also our level of significance, while the type 2 error is symbolized in the Greek letter beta. In the following examples, classify a decision as the type 1, type 2 error, or correct decision. Let's have our first given. A 20-year-old girl insists that she is a teenager. Again, a 20-year-old girl insists that she is a teenager. What do you think? Is this type 1, type 2, or correct decision? The answer? It's a type 1 error. Why? The girl is rejecting the truth. She's 20 years old, but she claims that she is still a teenager. Teenager ka kung ang edad nimo is 13 to 19. But since truth is that she is 20 years old, therefore she is no longer a teenager. And so in this situation, this is an example of a type 1 error. Now for our second example, we have the boy who stole the money was judged innocent. Again, the boy who stole the money was judged innocent. Is the decision type 1, type 2, or a correct one? Well, it is a type 2 error. Why? It's because the falsehood was accepted. He was judged innocent, but the truth is that he isn't innocent. He stole the money. So the falsehood is being accepted. That is why this situation commits a type 2 error. A senior high school student claims that she is in grade 11. Again, a senior high school student claims that she is in grade 11. So what do you think is the decision? Is it type 1, type 2, or a correct decision? That is right. It is a correct decision. It's because she is a senior high school student and she claims that she is in grade 11. So this is a correct decision. So we have again the four possible outcomes in decision making, and these decisions are based on the null hypothesis. We have to take note whether the null hypothesis is true or false, because when we reject a true null hypothesis, we commit a type 1 error. However, if we do not reject a true null hypothesis, or we accept the null hypothesis when it is true, then congratulations, you made a correct decision. In the same manner, when we reject a null hypothesis which is false, it is still a correct decision. But If we do not reject a false null hypothesis, we accept even if the hypothesis is false, we commit a type 2 error. So my dear students, for every action or decision we make, there are consequences. When we commit an error, there are consequences too. Since it is an error in decision making, the consequences may be tolerable or too severe. Severe enough to cost lives. In statistics, we measure that chance of committing the error, so we will have a basis in making a decision. Not only that decision making is important in hypothesis, but also in real life. So my dear students, have you committed type 1 error, type 2 error, or you made a correct decision? We are not perfect, but I hope that in every error that we commit, we learn from it, so that when we encounter with the same situation in the future, we will be able to make a correct decision. You can now start answering your module. Thank you and stay safe always.